Hey guys, so we're going to be continuing our running technique series today, and we're going to be talking about cadence. Cadence is the amount of steps you take per minute, and I talked about in previous episodes about how to analyze your cadence. It's not that hard, so I'll quickly go through it again. And the easiest way is to take a 10-second video of you running and then count the number of steps you take in that video and multiply it by 6, and that will tell you how many steps per minute you're taking, and that's your cadence. Another way is to use a metronome, which is just a beat, and you can use you can just download an app. I use one called Pro Metronome, which is great. It's free, but there's lots of others, and you can try and just match the beat to your steps is the other way you can do it. But either way, you're going to need that metronome for what we're going to try today, because we're going to be trying to increase the cadence if it's too low. So if you do the little analysis and you find that you're taking less than 100 steps per minute, then you might want to consider increasing your cadence. Little caveat here, all of these decisions should be made in the light of, your injury history, your goals, and that kind of thing. So it's very difficult for me to get on a video that I'm just going to distribute and say that you should increase your cadence, because it may be that actually you should not increase your cadence, even if it's below 170. It depends. If you have a lot of trouble with injuries in the feet, I probably wouldn't suggest increasing your cadence. If you have a lot of trouble with injuries in the knee, then I probably would, and that's because when you increase your cadence, you tend to shift stress down towards the feet and shins and away from the knees. So take all of this, I would say listen to a number of these episodes where I talk about running technique and the different things to consider before you decide if you're actually going to change anything. Anyway, so say you've decided you are going to change something. This is how you might do it. The first thing is that research has shown, I believe this is right, I didn't check the reference before I made this episode, but research shows that people tend to self-select, recreational runners tend to self-select a cadence that's about 8% below what would be optimal for them. For me, I don't go with the exact 8%, I think 5 to 10%. And the way I do this in the clinic is, say I measure someone's cadence and it's 160, and we've decided based on their current situation that we want to increase it, then I'm going to start with a 10% increase and see how they feel. So how do we do that? The first thing is we want to set the speed, and this is much, much, much easier with a treadmill. In fact, I would say trying to do this without a treadmill is, I've never done it. I think it's impossible, to be honest. The trouble is when you're trying to increase cadence without a treadmill is people just tend to run faster. As we run faster, our cadence, our step rate increases. So if you ask someone to increase their step rate or increase their cadence, they tend to run faster. If they're on a treadmill and they can't run faster, what they'll often do is reach for the button and try and increase the speed. And I'm like, you're not allowed to do that, okay? So if you use a treadmill, you can set the speed, and then you don't have to worry that you're accidentally running quicker instead of only increasing your cadence, which is what you want to do. So running on the treadmill, and we're going to set the speed. Treadmills are often in miles per hour. Let's say we're at 5.5 miles per hour, and we're just going to keep it at that speed. And that's the speed at which we've decided we're going to work on our cadence. And we have calculated already that our cadence is 160. And the first thing we're going to do is try and increase it by 10%. So we add 16 to 160 and we get 176. So we're going to get our metronome, which is the app that we just downloaded, and we're going to set the beats per minute to 176. Then we're going to get on the treadmill. Don't start the metronome yet, okay? Get on the treadmill, get warmed up, and then you're going to run for a minute. You're going to pay attention to how hard you feel like you're working. And we use something called the RPE, or the rate of perceived exertion, which is just a 1 to 10 scale of how hard you feel like you're working. Less than 4 is really easy and conversational. More than 6 is really hard, you can't talk. And 8, 9, and 10 is like as hard as you can go. You run for a minute at that, let's say 5.5 miles per hour, and you're going to quantify your effort using the RPE. So let's say at that speed, you feel like you're running a 5 out of 10, okay? Then you're gonna make sure when you increase your cadence, that 5 out of 10 doesn't change, okay? So RPE is 5 out of 10, speed's 5.5 miles per hour, and the cadence is your natural cadence currently. Now you start the metronome, and the beats per minute is going on at 176, and you're going to try and match your steps to that beat, okay? And if you can do it, then you should continue that for a few minutes, okay? Let's say 3 minutes. And then you're going to spend another minute and pay really close attention to your RPE, okay? Is it still 5 out of 10? Okay, if it's gone up to 6 out of 10, we might allow it. If it's gone up to 7 out of 10, that's no good. What this means is if your RPE goes up, your effort level goes up, when you increase your cadence at the same speed, it means you're running in a less efficient way. Now, if you are uninjured, if you have no injuries, and you increase your cadence and at the same speed you use more oxygen, you're going to hamper your performance, and it's not a good thing to do. If you are injured at the minute and you're using the cadence increase to help you to help you get over that injury, then it might still be worth doing in spite of the oxygen consumption going up. It might negatively affect your performance, but if it allows you to recover from your injury quicker, then it might be worth it. The juice might be worth the squeeze in that situation. So it really depends on your situation. So remember always to analyze this depending on your specific circumstances. Don't just shoot for a cadence of 170 to 190 just because you heard it was the right cadence, okay? So you've got to decide if that's the right cadence for you depending on your given circumstances. But let's say we are going to do it. So we run that second minute and our cadence is now 176. So we're in that happy zone, I call it, between 170 and 190. And we're still running at 5.5 miles per hour. We know that because the treadmill is set at that speed. And our RPE hasn't gone up. So we're still at a 5 out of 10, or maybe at a 5.5 or a 6 out of 10. And we're like, I'm pretty happy with that. The body should adjust to that and get used to it pretty quickly within 3 or 4 weeks. So if that's the circumstances, then you're like, okay, this is going to be my new running cadence. And then we'll talk about how to implement that over the next couple of weeks. If your RPE, your effort level goes up, let's say to a 7 out of 10, and you're still running at the same speed, and all you did was increase your step rate, your cadence, then that's too much for you. Okay, so what you're going to do instead is try a 5% increase. So that would be 168. So you're going to set the metronome to 168 and try and match that beat for a few minutes. Once you've done a few minutes, then you're going to spend 1 minute assessing your rate of perceived exertion again. So on that 1 to 10 scale, it's like, okay, now I'm back at a 5. So my effort level's 5, my speed is still 5.5, but now my cadence is 168. So I'm not quite in that happy zone of 170 to 190, but I'm closer to it than I was before, and it hasn't cost me in terms of oxygen consumption, or running economy is what we call that. You're like, okay, so 168 is my new cadence. And then in a few weeks, let's say 6 weeks or 4 weeks, because then it'll be a month, you might try again to go for the other 5% and get you in that happy zone, okay? So whichever one you choose, whether it's the 5% increase or the 10% increase based on the little trial we went through, then you need to implement it slowly. So over the next 4 or 5 weeks, what you're gonna do is sorry, my dog rolled over, he made me laugh. What we're gonna do is 1 minute at your new cadence for every 5 minutes at your old cadence. So let's say you're going out for a 5K run. First 4 minutes, you're just warming up. And then the next, that fifth minute, you do your new cadence. So you start your metronome, it'll be at, let's say we're going to go with the 176. We run for 1 minute with our cadence at 176. After the minute, you press stop on the metronome, so it turns off, and then you try and forget about it and just run in your normal way. After another 4 minutes, you turn it on again and you do another minute at your new cadence. Then you turn it off. Another 4 minutes, turn it back on. So every 5th minute, we do the cadence. If we do that for a week and it's feeling okay, then we can go 2 minutes out of every 5. If you do it for another week and it's going okay, you can go 3 minutes for every 5. If you start to notice foot pain, shin pain, calf pain, that kind of thing, as long as it's not too bad, you're just going to stay at that same level. So let's say you're going 2 minutes out of every 5 and your calves are starting to burn a little bit after your runs. Then it's like, okay, well, I'll just stay at 2 out of every 5 for the next 3 weeks until my calves get used to it. And once they get used to it, okay, I'll go to 3 out of 5. So we go in this kind of stepwise approach. And that should allow you to slowly, over the course of a month or 2, increase your cadence. And after a couple of months, following that process, you should be up to that 176. Your effort level should feel the same, and then you need to keep an eye on it because it'll wear off. So if your cadence is naturally fallen in that 160 range, it'll probably, they call it regression to the mean. It'll sort of just naturally wind its way back there. And what you want to do if you want to keep your cadence higher is do a top up I'd say 6 months is plenty. When you do your analysis again, you measure your cadence, or you can check it on your Garmin if you've got one that measures cadence, and you're going to redo your technique, your cadence drill, which is essentially what that is, if you find it's fallen down out of that ideal 170 to 190 range. And that's all I wanted to talk about today. So I hope you find that helpful. If you have any questions that you want to ask me, just shoot me an email, mboydphysio@gmail.com. And in the next episode, I think we'll talk about overstriding. All right, see you later.